Welcome to the Soul Call with Kelly B. I'm Kelly Butchart, soul medicine woman, energy alchemist, intuitive guide and change maker. I'm here to activate soul remembrance, unlock purpose and support the personal and collective evolution into sacred sovereignty. This podcast is a space for heart-led women to rise, to take their power back, to walk in truth and live elevated lives of joy, abundance and deep fulfillment. Through powerful conversations with visionaries, way showers and spiritual leaders, we weave ancient wisdom, quantum healing and divine insight to awaken something within your soul. This is more than a podcast, it's a movement. And remembering, this is the Soul Call. All of my offerings, social links and ways to connect are in the show notes below each episode. Be sure to check them out. I'd love to meet you there. And please remember to like, subscribe and share. Thank you for being here. Hi everyone and welcome back to the Soul Call with Kelly B. I'm your host, Kelly Butchart, and today's guest is someone who I'm sure many of you that follow this work that I do here and have these most beautiful, incredible guests on here will recognise Caroline. Caroline Georgiou is back with us today and she's here to share the higher elevation of her work. Caroline joined me a few months ago, and since then, her work has evolved into this most passionate, I feel, Caroline, that this is the most passionate work that you have ever done. And really, 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 I feel proud to see the work that you're doing. So let me start off just by sharing what we already know about Caroline. She's someone whose work truly moves with the rhythm of soul and service. So Caroline here is a global Innerdance facilitator, trainer, published writer and radio show host. A very busy lady. She is deeply devoted to nurturing the form and flow of Innerdance here in Scotland and around the world, bringing this transformative modality into schools, prisons, which we're going to hear more about, and the heart of communities. With a background in counselling and somatic movement therapy, Caroline weaves together wisdom and embodiment to create safe, ethical spaces for deep healing. Her work honours the individual journey while also cultivating a powerful sense of co-creation and belonging. She offers individual and group sessions, facilitates dream groups, and is currently preparing to share a new practice called embodiment. I'm so honoured to welcome you back to today's show, Caroline, and to hear more about the evolution of you and your work. So welcome, welcome, welcome.
Thank you for having me back, Kelly. It's interesting to hear you describe me. I'm like, wow, that's true.
Yeah, and it's all good. And it's what you are bringing forward. And when we spoke a few months ago, I was just so blown away with my personal experiences of coming along to only a couple of your Innerdance sessions, but the lasting impact of those sessions has been so profound for me. And I've gone back to look at the journal notes that I took from those experiences, and they are just as beautiful. It takes me right back to those moments where I had those very real experiences. So before we hear about where that's all evolved since then, I would love just to go back to that point, Caroline, and I would love for you to share what your work has looked like up until recently and what Innerdance actually is, because there are people, when I speak about you and I speak about Innerdance and that haven't seen, you talk about it in this previous episode that we put out there, like, what is that? What is Innerdance? Would you please explain?
Yes, and it's an ongoing inquiry. What is inner dance? Ask me tomorrow and you might have a different response. But for many of us, it's the name we give to a particular energy that is universal, that has always existed, and that has been channeled through particular mediums of vibration, sound, and therapeutic touch, so that individuals and groups can remember who they were born to be. So we're taking this invisible energy and it's being translated in ways that the human body can consciously perceive.
What a beautiful way to describe it so succinctly. But of course, you know, this is the beauty of it because you described it so succinctly and simply, but it is such a complex thing that's happening. It's multi-layered and it's multi-dimensional.
Yeah,
And so the soundscapes, the incredible soundscapes that you produce, kind of play with your mind
yeah,
because your mind's going, what am I listening to? Oh, now there's another sound. Oh, now there's another sound. And you're kind of in this strange space of this feels very different to like
yeah,
songs and music that I'm used to following because we're used to having patterns and rhythm in music. And of course, that's how our brain takes in information. It likes things that are organized and structured. But these soundscapes that you produce take a very different approach. Could you explain what happens a little bit further and maybe some of the science and technical
sure.
side of it a little bit?
Yeah, absolutely. I think you started off really describing it really well. So when we turn the radio on, for those of us that listen to radio still, the songs that we hear are repetitive.
Mhm,
We can predict what's going to come next. There's a verse, there's a rhythm, there's a chorus. And our brains love predictability. We're actually very addicted to knowing what comes next. And
mhm,
it creates cycles of familiarity, which we're wired for. We're wired for that level of comfort, which can create really narrow worlds.
mhm,
And we know exactly what to expect around the corner and what's happening in the next beat. So, what we're working with are sounds and noises that disrupt that linear way of experiencing the world, because the world isn't actually linear.
mhm,
It confuses the brain in a sense, it becomes disoriented, and it's a bit like going into a dream.
mhm,
So, we're blending a consciousness between waking and dreaming, where that in between space, anything is possible. And I like to, what inspires me with my soundscape creation is, you ever notice that in your dreams there's no sound?
mm,
That there actually isn't. And I
yeah,
want to capture, if we could turn the volume up on our dreams, what would they sound like? And that's really what I'm trying to create and capture through my music and my sound creation. So it's going to be jarring at times. It's not going to make sense. There's not going to be any rhythms to hold on to. And that enables us to yield or surrender into a process a bit like dreaming.
mhm, mhm. I love
Yeah.
that. And so we're going into altered states of consciousness, aren't we? Going into these
So,
deeper brain waves. And just if I can describe it to people like, that have never experienced any of this kind of work before, you you hold, and I've said this in the previous podcast, you hold the most exquisite space, Caroline. You're an incredible space holder. I'm not a big one on labels, but you set up the conditions so beautifully. And even your voice, people listening and tuning into your voice just now, I just love listening to you. So even the pristineness of that frequency. So we're very comfortable. We get to snuggle in our blankets and lie down on our yoga mats and have our cushions, and all of that safety and comfort is available to us. But oh my goodness, when the soundscape starts, now the second time I came along, I thought, I'm not really getting much from this. You know, it's because I went straight into it very deeply in the first one. And the second time I thought, not really getting much. I was very kind of consciously aware of, the sounds and where I was, and then boom, it was like one of the tracks just took me really, really deep. And I thought, oh, here we go. And there are some very strange noises sometimes. So it might sound like bullets whizzing by, or bombs, or
Mm,
bathwater running alongside these tracks.
that's
So
right.
your brain's flitting around going, oh my goodness, like, oh, where am I now? Where am I now? So there's nothing to hang on to, is there? It's just, I have to go with the flow of this and surrender. And that's what I love about it, because it takes you so deep into the unknown, into the subconscious.
Right.
And although you're fully aware that you're safe and you're comfortable lying down, what I love is it gets below that safety and it gets into the discomfort, and the body allows yourself to release from the cells. This is the inner dance, isn't it? It's like riding the wave of emotions that are deeply held within yourselves. So I've had tears flowing out of my eyes before, and then I felt deep joy, and oh my goodness, it's so, so beautiful. What is it like for you to observe that? And what are some of your experiences of facilitating these sessions for others?
Well, firstly, it's always an honor.
Mm.
It's the most humbling privilege to caretake and tend to the space so that anyone who wants to can drop and fall asleep, in a sense, and go on an inner journey. Um, yeah, I feel like a bit like the torchbearer. I'm just taking care of everything so that you don't have to worry about a thing.
Mhm.
And I describe it, it's like a cosmic crash. Like all the layers of identity that are either imposed upon us or that we try to maintain, those energies begin to dissolve. And you see someone's true essence revealed in front of you. And there's an innocence, a purity, and a childlike quality to everyone that begins to show itself. And it's like looking at little babies on mats in a nursery.
Mhm.
And you're just curious. I'm curious about, okay, who's going to dare to be themselves today and trust that you're going to be unconditionally accepted as you are? You know, no one's going to chastise you. No one's going to tell you to grow up quickly or to not making that sound or make or move in a certain way. So there's something about freedom for me and people remembering, relearning how to trust that that exists. And quite quickly, we start off as individuals, but we're all unified in this field. It's just through our linear ways of looking at things that we lose conscious contact that we're all in a united field. And so at some point, because my brain waves are also being impacted, I'm in a process too. I'm just holding meta attention to myself and everybody else and what's going on. So the distinction between facilitating and being facilitated disappears, and we're all one. So if I'm working with you, Kelly, and perhaps I'm working around your head, for example, I'm also touching everybody else's head at the same time. We're all in it together.
I love that. I love that.
Yeah, and there is a moment, it's actually visible that everybody's energy just rises. There's a rising up, a bit like a wave, and everybody meets, and you just feel it. And you can see it, even though it's invisible. And everyone softens and meets energetically, and it's the most breathtaking heart-moving experience to witness.
Hmm. Just
Yeah,
so beautiful. Do you know, it's
yeah.
making me think of, I've had beautiful experiences in the astral, if you like, and memories of being in mystery schools and in sound temples of the mystery schools.
Mhm.
And what is being revealed now is also the remembrance of the Tartarian empires, as some people talk about, but actually they're much more ancient than that. So we're accessing divine technologies and we're accessing information from the one field, the collective field, and the ether. And I love what's starting to come more into the public domain is how many of these cathedrals, let's call them cathode rals, and churches are placed on very, very significant places, nodal points where song lines, ley
Yeah.
lines, dragon lines, call them what they were, converge. And we were told that the bells were removed from these places to be made into ammunition for war. Now, that's a whole nefarious agenda right there. But these beautiful healing generators were there were complex structures that were tapping into these song lines on the planet, and then the harmonics that would come up through these cathedrals, where we would go in and sing in frequencies of, say, 432 hertz with the bells, was healing the planet and
Mhm.
healing ourselves and generating every cell in our body.
Yeah.
And I really feel that you have soul remembrance of having done this many,
Mhm.
many times in many different guises in different lifetimes, Caroline. And I want to honour you for, and we've never spoken about this, have we? I want to honour you for retaining this, remembering these incredible gifts and the gnosis that you have that everything comes from sound and harmonics and frequency, and that we have the ability to heal ourselves of trauma, of grief, of pain and suffering, not just from this life, but from lifetimes. And it's just so powerful what you're here to do, which now brings me very nicely to you have been doing some very, very interesting work in America. So you're taking this heart gnosis, this deep wisdom and remembrance, seeing how this is unfolding in people's lives, but you're now taking this across the pond to work in prisons. And one thing that I want to mirror back to you is the humility and the humble heart that you have because you recognize that judgment is not the way forward. This is about we are all here to rise together. So you spoke about linear time. We know it's not linear. We know that separation is an illusion. We're all connected through the one heart, this collective conscious field. And so you have the honour and privilege to really know this and to take this heart service to those that need it most because we can't leave anybody behind. Because we're not just here to look after ourselves individually, of course, take self responsibility for ourselves, but also to support our brothers and sisters. So I would love for you to share how that has all come around and about this beautiful work that you're taking forward now.
Sure. Well, it actually started about a year ago. I was invited to bring Innerdance into HMP Perth
Mhm.
once a fortnight, and the response of the guys and the experiences of transformation were so pronounced. the popularity grew and sessions became weekly. So I've been developing and refining the practice within the prison walls for a long time. And a few months ago, my dear friend and colleague Lisa Butcher, she's based in London, she introduced me to her friend, Coach Taylor, who she runs a non-profit organization and who's been working in over 400 prisons for 24 years.
Wow.
And her, alongside prisoners, she helped to co-create a set of life tools which has revolutionized rehabilitation in the American prison system.
Amazing.
And as the visionary, she could see the potential to translate these cognitive life tools into sound and frequency healing. And that through a fusion of two worlds, two portals of healing, that some phenomenal transformation can take place. So that's what we're involved with now. We were over in America for a couple of weeks in January, and we had the honour of going to County Jail in LA, and then we went to Calipatria State Prison, and we facilitated what we now call inner GOGI Dance. GOGI is the getting out by going in nonprofit, and so the name is fusing both of these modalities together, and we worked well for the first time in the world, bringing these two together with a group of inmates, and had the profound privilege of being granted permission to video that. And that's available to watch on YouTube. And it was, well, one of the most humbling experiences of my life. Really held and guided by the work that I'm doing with the men in the Scottish prison. You know, they've really encouraged and supported me this last year and been so courageous, because inner dance is not easy work.
No.
It's not for the faint-hearted.
Definitely.
And they show up every week, so committed. And yeah, so long story short, it was such a success that we've been invited back for 4 months, and we're in the process of fundraising, and we're heading back out in June. And the intention is to visit as many prisons as we possibly can, to offer in-person facilitation to as many prisoners as we can. And part of that journey will be to teach and model how to be facilitated. It will gather feedback and opinions from every participant, so that will help us to create a curriculum that we can introduce to the UK. What else? Oh my goodness. To help create a niche specialism within inner dance, and for people that might like to consider working in restricted environments such as the prisons. Yeah, and just, I don't know, changing the world. Really.
Wow.
Yeah, this is huge. The work is universal. It begins in the prisons, but it will ripple out into every space. The prisoners are modeling for us what's possible. And one more thing, just imagine this. So the men and women that are involved in our program have been studying these cognitive life tools for some time. And this is extensive study. It can lead up to the equivalent of an associate degree. So they've shown commitment and discipline, and that their purpose is to be of service, even if they're never getting out of prison again. But these students have access to tablets where they can do their online studies from their prison cells. So the soundscapes that we've created in conjunction with our teacher Pi will be available to over 38,000 prisoners. So can you imagine 38,000 prisoners could potentially be listening to the same soundscape at the same time while they're lying in their cell on their 2-inch mattress, raising the frequency and retuning their cellular frequencies to one of well-being.
Wow. I have got goosebumps upon my goosebumps. like listening to this because I feel my body's telling me the immensity of this work. This
Yeah.
is so huge. And again, I just want to honor you for accepting your very, very participative and leading role in all of this. You know, all of your um, heart wisdom, all of the training that you've done, as well as, you know, these beautiful souls that you're working alongside. I really feel like this is you coming to like your bigger mission here. It's
Yeah.
so profound. Can I ask what initially attracted you to work with prisoners? What was the gateway? What was the doorway there?
I was invited in. This was not my plan. I didn't think this was what life was going to look like for me.
Mhm,
Someone who attended a session in Perth said, I can see you working in prisons, and I think this would be amazing for them. Introduced me electronically to some wardens. I went in, we got on really well. They could see that I could navigate those spaces comfortably.
mhm.
And funding was made available. Everything just fell into place. And that's when you know you're on the right path. And
Absolutely.
I just followed the breadcrumbs.
Mhm, mhm,
So none of this I've had to initiate. It's just all
mhm,
available.
mhm, mhm,
And yeah, it's paradoxical, you know.
mhm,
I feel at home in a prison space.
mhm,
I feel at home with the density of information that's within the walls.
mhm,
And I find a sense of internal freedom available to me that I'm not always so consciously connected to when I go out, when I
mhm,
go outside the other side of the wall.
mhm,
And so this is facilitating profound cellular transformation within me too.
mhm,
I guess that's what you're seeing and you're picking up on.
mhm. Yeah, absolutely.
You
Yeah.
know, my greatest teachers are in jumpsuits.
Mhm, mhm. Wow. And to hear that this is, I mean, this is just the start, Caroline, as you know, but you have immediate access through technology to 38,000 inmates.
Yeah.
And that's only going to grow and blossom. And, you know, I'm a very visual person at times, and I'm just seeing all of these lights coming on across what I call the diamond light grid. I just see, like, I spoke about the cathedrals and the churches being on these song lines, but when you think
Yes.
about hospitals and prisons, there's a lot of dense energy there, isn't there? Because there's so much of the lower frequencies. And to
Right. Yeah.
bring light and hope back into the darkest and most dense places, that's the work, isn't it? It's like what we are doing personally on an internal level when you're looking at the shadow within,
Hmm.
bringing that to the light. It's like you're doing this on a collective level. And the ripple effect of this, I think, is what I'm tuning into. It's so beautiful. And I'm bringing it back even to um, I'm not religious. I was for a time. I did explore different churches and things, kind of in that phase in my early 20s of trying to find myself. And of course, it's not looking for God outside of you, it's all in here. And I had to do that journey to circumvent back to the heart. But I'm so glad I had those experiences because gosh, there were so many amazing people I met and so many amazing experiences in there. And one person that's come into my mind right now is a minister. He was a Church of Scotland minister for many years in the ex-mining village that I grew up in. And when we had our first daughter, we would go along and he was nicknamed the Wee Rev, and he was not much taller than me, and I'm only 5'1" at a stretch. And his name's Scott Burton. an amazing guy, and he was very animated, and I just had such a lovely connection with him, as did all of the congregation, because we could feel his heart. And what I loved about him was his authenticity, because he had had quite a troubled time growing up um, in Glasgow, and had turned to sort of the gang culture because he found a sense of belonging there. And he got caught up in stuff involving knives, and he served time in prison. And for him, that was where he found himself. He found God. And so his pathway took him down the pathway of religion for quite some time. And then he went on to work in quite a big church in Perth, and he set up a brewery with the local community. And I'm like, gosh, this is like what the Benedictine monks used to do. And he's stepped away from the church and he's working as a celebrant. But he is just one living, breathing example of that incident for him. That point in his time was such a pivotal moment for him. You know, it was like a big pause in his life to really go within, and it happened to be inside a prison. For him to really find God within him, his God self, you know, the power that he held to do good, to be of heart service in the world. And he's still navigating his beautiful golden thread out there. And you think that's just one person. Think of the souls that you and the team are going to be working and impacting around the world. It's just so phenomenal, that knock-on effect of how someone's life can be changed so dramatically. And really, for me, I talk about sovereignty a lot, Caroline, and the liberation that we can find within ourselves, and to bring back, as I say, hope and power to people through their hearts. I just feel like it's like I can see you just destructing the old stories that they've held on to, and then really getting to the core of who they are. How does it feel just even having that reflected back? Like how huge this is.
It kind of takes my breath away. You know, when we're able to really bear accurate witness to this level of trauma transformation. You know, think of the prisons as a mirror
Mhm.
to what's dysfunctional in our world.
Yeah, the shadow of humanity. Yeah.
Yeah. And that even in the darkest of spaces, actually, that's where light can shine the brightest.
Mhm.
And to, I don't know, play some small part in supporting that. Again, it's just a really humbling position to be in. You know, these men and women, their time is all they have, really. And they're choosing to invest and not to waste their time. And some of these men and women will never leave prison.
Mhm.
And they've discovered that they can be an influence for good, and that they can see when their cellmates are struggling, and that they've actually got some kindness or wisdom or support, guidance to offer them. You know, there's something about reconnecting with their true essence finally.
Mhm.
Or, you know, when their kids are on the phone or
Mhm.
their loved ones are on the phone. And that's partly the amazing thing about the life tools that they study, is that a great way of learning is teaching, is that, you know, their kids on the phone saying, I'm being bullied at school. And they're teaching their children how to take a belly breath, or to take five, call it the 5 second light switch so that you don't react with the old part of your brain. You're working with the smart part of your brain and teaching their children or their communities about these life tools that are enabling them not only to survive the prison, but to thrive inside of it. That even in these most restricted of spaces, they've discovered that freedom is an internal state and that they don't have to be governed by old habitual thinking, that survival brain and personality
Mhm.
that kept them alive.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Wow. Yeah. And I love that you share that because it's even like breaking the cycles of generational trauma.
absolutely. That's exactly what it is. I
Mm.
was in Perth prison a few weeks ago and I was asking the guys, what would you say to what did you not hear when you were a teenager that could have changed things for you?
Mhm.
And the guys found it a really difficult question. They couldn't answer what they needed for themselves. There's still work to be done there. But they were very quick to say what they want to offer their daughters and sons and the type of advice so that they don't make the same mistakes or go down the same paths that they themselves did. Yeah.
Wow.
So absolutely interrupting cycles
Mhm.
of
Mhm.
intergenerational trauma, of systemic injustice. A
Yeah.
lot of the guy we've been so far predominantly working with men, and most of these men there wasn't any love in the home. And the only role models that they had were violent men who ruled through aggression, and
Mhm.
that respect was carrying a gun or selling drugs.
Mhm. Mhm.
And that's what they aspire to be because that's all there was.
Mhm.
And now they're discovering that they can be a role model, like I said earlier, a role model for with heart that actually self-respect, they don't have to dehumanize themselves anymore, that they can live with integrity. It's
Yeah.
such reclamation work.
Yeah. Yeah.
And there's something about honoring the people who they've harmed
Mhm.
along the way
Mhm.
in that recovery work.
Mhm. Which is so important as well.
Absolutely.
Mhm.
Absolutely.
Mhm.
And they get very excited at the idea of things like inner dance being in primary schools.
Me
Like
too.
if I'd had something like this when I was wee, because I struggled, you'd call it ADHD now, you'd call it autism, or they would have recognized that home was awful. You
Yeah.
know, I wish my son or my daughter had this. Can you go to their school type of thing? And
Mhm.
so there's an acute awareness
Mhm.
that their story had been written before they were born.
Mhm. Absolutely. And I love that you've brought that point to the fore, Caroline, because, um, the audience tuning in here will have heard me talk before that I worked in primary schools for 22 years. And so I see the impact, of generational trauma. In
Sure.
Scotland, we're pushing ahead of several years ago to be the first nation to be recognised as a trauma-informed nation, which is admirable, but we were talking and talking and talking about it. And I thought I was becoming increasingly frustrated with the talk. It's like we can talk about this till the cows come home, but what are we actually doing about it? When are we going to get real here and actually bring in the therapeutic healing modalities that are so needed? Because this needs to be um, released from the body. Yeah.
Yeah. If you think about, well, babies are just pure body, and they laugh. It's like
Mhm.
every cell is laughing, and that doesn't change. You see when children begin to lose their spontaneity and their spark through their movement.
Mhm.
But when kids are angry, it's a whole body
Mhm.
experience, or
Ah,
they're sad or whatever. It's not compartmentalized.
no.
So it has to be a body-based approach because that's where trauma lives. It gets stuck in the
Yeah,
body.
yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And, I latterly was a school principal, head teacher, as we call them in the UK here, and I call myself a heart teacher because that's where it's at. Um, and yeah, just seeing the level of violence and aggression in very young children, which some of it's learned behaviour, but a lot of it is stored up emotions, sometimes over lifetimes, and they don't know how to get it out of their body in a safe way and to release that. So we did a lot of work on all of that and brought in yoga mats to the classrooms. We had big movement breaks for a lot of children that needed that. Um, we had meditation on a daily basis as a non-negotiable because it's all about coming inside. As we know, it's the inward journey. And also challenging children and families to take self-responsibility and to reflect on their behaviours too, and not to be frightened of these big emotions, not to suppress them because we know that that leads to volcanic eruptions. So it's so needed everywhere, Caroline, this level of work. And, just taking on such a huge, momentous um, challenge, and really devoting yourself in this way to the work is just so beautiful to witness and to see. And I wish you all the very, very best with this. My hope is that this can also be extended and, work similar to this into working with the families of these inmates, into working with primary school children. Is so beautiful. As I say, this is just the start.
Exactly. Yeah, the scope for this is absolutely global in every sense, working with little kids, but people don't serve time on their own. Their families are also serving time. Even the people that work in prison in their own way are serving time.
Mm-hmm,
But, this way,
mm-hmm,
this
mm-hmm,
ancient wisdom serves all of us.
mm-hmm,
And if we can work with the power of sound to entrain ourselves into frequencies for well-being and community,
mm-hmm.
harmony.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Oh, I've got goosebumps again, bringing us back into harmony. Oh my goodness, I love it, I love it, I love it. So we know that this is huge work, Caroline. We know that it's, a huge investment for you and the team. It's a lot of hours. I can imagine that this is really taking its toll for you as well. And I don't just mean the travel, but also like the time investment. And you're really pouring your heart into this work. So I would love for you to share how, people listening can learn more, where they can find out more. You mentioned that YouTube clip if they want to see a bit more, and also maybe how we can invest as in financially supporting these projects.
Sure. Well, firstly, just even having conversations with your friends or your family about what does freedom mean to you? To start having those conversations. Do you know what it feels like to feel trapped in your body? Let's go for a walk. These sorts of things begin to open up conversations about subjects that we tend not to explore. That's a great starting point. Um, and that's one way to help us to amplify the message of those whose voices are never heard or listened to. We are doing fundraising events, so there maybe there's somebody close by to you who might be doing an Innerdance fundraiser or online. But we've also got GoFundMe pages where we're even, the price of a cup of coffee gets us 20 miles on the road, 20 miles towards a few hundred prisoners, and that could change their lives. One of the guys that attended the session, it was a 30-minute session, and he wrote his letter of thank you saying that ever since he was a little boy, and this resonates with me because I also felt this way when I was little, that he had a calloused heart. And after the session, he realized that his heart was full of love and that he wants to find ways to let that spread around the world. So, reaching people like him, 1 cup of coffee, every penny counts, every conversation counts. And for the next week, I'm offering a library of my soundscapes for a minimum donation of £85. You get 10 full 1 hour sessions and some for children as well. And that's like over 260 hours that it took to create those. So that's an option as well.
Beautiful.
So there's lots of different ways. The founder Pi, he wrote a book a wee while back, and we have some signed limited edition copies, and he's going to donate all proceeds to the prison project. So there's only about 30 in the UK now because they're selling very quickly. So if somebody would like one, then you can get in touch with me, and I'm sure Kelly, you'll put all my details out there.
Yeah, absolutely will. I absolutely will. I'll drop all the links, the GoFundMe link, your social media links, Caroline, any YouTube links so people can see this work in action as well.
Exactly. And oh my goodness, I relive it just watching it. It's iconic. It's to see the guys just because like in Scotland, the men I'm working with, they've got yoga mats, they've got blankets. I get to work with certain therapeutic tools and also including touch. And then the guys in America are in their jumpsuits, they're on a concrete floor, the lights don't get turned down, they've got no creature comforts, but to see them just in that circle, dropping into this energy process. And that for that to be captured on video, for them to give us permission to film that intimate experience, you'll be forever changed by watching it. So I do encourage you to check that out.
Amazing.
And share it far and wide, because we really want to change the systems. We want to come back to the UK and we want to get into the UK prisons. We want to help support this work to take place in prisons around Europe, the Americas, everywhere really.
Yeah.
And then the schools and the hospitals and
Amazing, amazing, Caroline. I wish you all the very, very best with this incredible project. And yeah, I cannot wait to see where this is all going to lead. And I don't just mean in the 3D, if you like, but also, I'm listening to you and I'm thinking this is so huge, like even bigger than we realize, because, we're eternal souls. And, this isn't just impacting this life for these souls, it's impacting their soul and their soul's group. And so for me, it's so huge. So thank you, thank you, thank you for the work that you do. And I can't wait to connect with you again and get another update. Maybe in a few months' time, we'll have you back on to share even more.
just to spend a bit of time with you, Kelly. I'm just really appreciate the space to be able to talk about this, because I appreciate it's a very emotive, divisive conversation.
Yeah, yeah,
We appreciate that, but that's why it's so important to have.
yeah, yeah.
Because we can't just keep building more prisons.
Yeah, absolutely not. Well, thank you for being part of the solution, Caroline. Thank you so much. And thank you to everybody for tuning in today.
Yeah, thank you, everybody. Please feel free to message me if you have any questions.
Amazing. Thank you, Caroline.
Okay, my lovely.
Thank you so much for tuning in to the Soul Call with Kelly B today. If this episode spoke to your heart, I'd be so grateful if you'd take a moment to like, subscribe, or share it with someone who needs to hear it. Your support truly means the world, and it helps this message ripple even further. And if you're feeling called to explore more of my work, my latest offerings, sessions, and ways to connect are all in the show notes below. I would love to hear from you. Until next time, keep listening to your beautiful soul. With so much love, Kelly.